Sudan, chairman of our Children's Activities Committee. And to that end, I'm honored to present to you the chairman of that committee.
Thank you, Dan. Just take a few minutes here. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, especially the patient that we have here tonight. I know the weather is so bad, and they had a little difficult time getting here, but they're very excited about coming. We have Raelyn Weber and her mother, Marisa Weber. They brought her sisters too, so they might want to come up here and stand up here too. Marisa, would you like to come up?
Yes. Come
on up here, girl. Raelyn is our child that we're taking to the hospital. She's got her sister. I wanted her mother to introduce them. Miss, would you like to speak?
It doesn't like me, apparently. Well, before I have something prepared to say to everybody, these are my daughter, Rachel. You stand up? She is 8 years old. Riley is my youngest. She is 4 years old. And the reason why I'm here tonight is Raelyn. She's 6. Let's see if it likes me now. Apparently microphones are not my best friend tonight. But thank you, Honorable Potentate, members of the Sudan Temple and visiting Shriners, Masonic brothers and sisters and friends. To be able to address you in this capacity is an absolute honor, and to be able to share our story with you, words cannot begin to describe this wonderful feeling right now. I'm no stranger to the Masonic family. My father was a past master of La Mesa Lodge, number 407 in California, a past Grand Sword Bearer, thank you. And also the chairman of Budget and Finance of the Masonic Homes. My mother was a past Grand Officer for Rainbow in California and a current Eastern Star member. My father was also a Shriner and a Scottish Rite Mason. Because of the Scottish Rite speech therapy services, my brother, who's 27 years old, at 5 years old, he was diagnosed with autism and told that because he was autistic, he'd never amount to anything more than an 18-month-old cognitively. My brother is now the president of the Special Olympics Council, holding a legal degree and the first person to ever graduate and pass the bar exam on his first try, and he's published 2 books. So I guess it was only fair that my little family had our own dealings with the Masonic family and how their services can impact our lives for the better. After 6 miscarriages and the premature birth of my oldest, my doctors believed I would not be able to carry or conceive again. Needless to say, I was both elated and terrified when I found out I was pregnant 9 months after giving birth to Rachel via an emergency C-section. We treated this as a high-risk pregnancy, much like Rachel was treated, yet despite all our exercises and caution and care, I've suffered a 50% placental abruption, and she was born 8 weeks prematurely at in Concord, North Carolina, while we were up there for the NASCAR race. The medical team told us had we been another 5 minutes getting into the operating room, she and I would not have survived. A week later, even though Raelyn had proven her strength and just her resilience, and the doctors even projected that another week we would have been discharged, there were other plans ahead of us. Her doctor called me from Jacksonville following his doctor's appointment, and he had just been diagnosed with colorectal cancer a week after she had been born. He was only 35 years old, and a few hours later they told me that Raelyn had necrotizing enterocolitis. It's a condition where air collects around a pocket in her intestines, and they found it because she had been bleeding, the same symptom that led us to find her father's cancer. So you can imagine my frustration and fear at this almost exact same beginning process of diagnosis. For 6 weeks, we lived in the Carolina Medical Center at Jeff Gordon Children's Hospital. Raelyn was discharged on the same day she had originally been scheduled to be born, and over the next few months, we battled her father's cancer, and I'm proud to report that years later, he is still cancer-free. With the nightmare of 2009 over and having just celebrated Raelyn's first birthday, I noticed signs of serious delay. Even with the expected 2-month grace period usually allowed by premature birth, she couldn't sit up on her own, which she should have done at 6 months old. She couldn't crawl. She could not hold her head up for very long, even just laying on her stomach, something you would see a 3-month-old doing. Her eyes, once straight, began to drift inward, and they would stay there. We took her to the Childhood Developmental Services Agency right here in New Bern for testing, where they determined at 15 to 17 months of age, she was only 7 to 9 months old developmentally. We then went to East Carolina Neurology, where her new doctor ordered an MRI, and the results showed that Raelyn had periventricular leukomalacia moderately spread throughout her brain. I had to Google it to find out what this terminology meant, and I let out a scream when I found out that it meant that she had white matter death throughout her brain. Also, when I looked at the report later, they didn't tell me at the time, but she had suffered perinatal ischemic disease. She had suffered a stroke sometime during her birth. At the follow-up, the neurologist confirmed she had cerebral palsy, later to be specified to congenital diplegia cerebral palsy, mainly affecting her legs. We immediately received a referral for physical, occupational, and speech therapy through Onslow Memorial Hospital Rehabilitation Center. Raelyn did her best, but at almost 2 months old, I guess they're jungle gymming back here behind me, aren't they? You guys good? All right, just don't fall. All right. I wish I had their energy. If I could bottle it, I'd make more money than Red Bull. She could only do so much for so long at just 2 years old. You know, for time's sake, we had 3 specialists scheduled on the same day back to back, but most times it proved to be too stressful to her, so we had to cut the session short. One time during these appointments, waiting out in the waiting room, a man approached me, having seen me with Raelyn and Rachel, and handed me a card. Riley hadn't been born yet. On it was a picture of the Sudan Temple. As I was preoccupied at the moment, I placed the card in one of the pockets of my wallet, and I thanked him, and I explained our family history, as I did earlier with Masonic Lodge. And again, I thanked him for his time, and I never saw that man in that office again. I still remember him to this day as an angel. Shortly thereafter, Raelyn began preschool with an IEP for a developmental delay, much like Rachel did. So we ceased her outside therapies under the assumption that Raelyn would receive her necessary therapy at school. But however, 5 months into her second year of preschool, I discovered that she wasn't anywhere near achieving the goals they had set for her in our IEP. I had no idea who her physical therapist was, how often, when, or for how long she had sessions. She had no occupational therapy, and her teacher did nothing but complain about Raelyn's difficulty with walking. February 2014, I resumed her physical and occupational therapy through OMH Rehab with appointments twice weekly. Within the first month, I saw major improvements. She could ride an adaptive tricycle on her own. It was something she could never even attempt to do. She wouldn't attempt to do before these services. By fall of that same year, the hospital requested to use Raelyn for the promotion of their therapy service because of her strides in her recovery, and a news report covering that story was later released on WITN News. Before the start of 2015, Raelyn was discharged from all therapy services, having met all goals and graduating from their care. One day as I was going through my wallet, I came across that card the man had given me years before. I called, made an appointment, and was welcomed into the family of the Shriners Hospital. The doctors and nurses there listened to every single one of my concerns and answered every question and never treated me as inferior or ignorant. They partnered with me in ensuring my daughter receives the best, most focused and advanced care available. Anything that may have been done incorrectly in the past, they remedied. They didn't hesitate, they immediately fixed it. And the bracelets she wears today, those are from the Shriners Hospital. Despite my insecurities and fears that I had somehow failed Raelyn, they reassured me that I was doing everything right and that I was a good mother. And if any of you have ever been in a position where I am, that's the most wonderful feeling or wonderful thing to be told by a stranger, is that you're doing a good job. While a part of me wished I'd made the call sooner, I realized I made the call exactly as I was meant to. Raelyn has endured so much: a premature birth, eye surgery, numerous out-of-town visits to neurologists, ophthalmologists, gastroenterologists, physical and psychiatric therapists, orthopedists, and yet she's excelled and defied the odds. She has even proven every day that, like her two sisters, she's a miracle and a fighter. From scoring goals in soccer, winning local and state beauty pageants, keeping up with her peers in dance class and in school, Raelyn is not disabled, she's diff-able. It's a term that our family came up with, meaning differently abled. And through it all, Raelyn has maintained her unconditionally loving and compassionate personality. The saying, God never gives us anything more than we can handle, is not true. Like any good personal trainer, God adds just a little more weight to our already heavy load, but spots us as we adapt and strengthen ourselves to handle the extra pressure. He would never let us drop it. In fact, he'd pick it up for us if we felt we were about to. As long as we don't give up, he rewards us for our efforts and our faith. According to Romans 8:2-8, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. The Shriners Hospital of Greenville, South Carolina was our reward for pushing harder and persevering despite years of frustration and setbacks. And in the months and years to come, they will be the catalyst of God's love. It's our training to help the widows and the children in their affliction, isn't it? To say that this has been a long road so far would not only be an understatement, but it's a bit inaccurate. I have never known a road to have so many detours and obstacles in it. Instead, I see it as a footpath, not a beaten one, as no two people travel the same way or always to the same destination, and also not beaten in the sense that we haven't been defeated. I have come to call this the unbeaten path, as every step is into new territory, and we refuse to give up and turn around, regardless of how difficult the terrain becomes or how impossible it seems to navigate it. My parents raised me to have the faith of a mustard seed, telling me that with it I could move mountains and that nothing would be impossible to me as long as I had that faith, Matthew 17:20. When Raelyn was diagnosed as developmentally delayed, I was discouraged. When I was told that she had brain damage and cerebral palsy, I was destroyed. The impossible mountain stood before me, and the summit seemed inaccessible. At times, what seemed to be the height of Mount Everest also had the added length of the Appalachian Trail. But, not wishing my daughters to give up either, we walked the trail anyway, hand in hand with our heads held high and hope in our hearts. Because of the Shriners Hospital, we not only have a clear view of the top, but we actually have a tangible way of reaching it now. Because of Raelyn and my daughters, I have learned that suffering is not the absence of goodness, but perhaps it is the place where true beauty can be known. In our times of struggle and desperation, we can become the most powerful messengers of God's love. God bless every single one of you here tonight, or those that couldn't be here tonight. God bless you for all the work you do to support this amazing organization and brotherhood. Without you, my daughter may not have the same possibilities in front of her. I pray that our being here and sharing our story with you will inspire you not only to continue your work for the Shriners Hospital, but to remind those you know or meet who may be in similar situations to ours that they are only limited by the limitations they define for themselves. And they are never alone. Thank you, and until we meet again.
That don't